All right, so now we have a website. We want to start designing our website, and that's where the whole term of the specificity comes in, because now we need to start targeting our stuff. So let me open up that specificity link. All right, so we went through and we kind of explained about it, that I can have things that are more specific. So if I say I'm trying to target a paragraph and I want to target a more specific paragraph, well, I could say, I want the paragraph that is right after an H2 element. So I could do this. And if I check my specificity, this is more specific. It is including two elements instead of just one to describe it. But things like classes, so if I have a class that's called first paragraph, then classes are more specific than elements. If I have, let's say, a ID with nothing else, ID, and I have it called paragraph, IDs are more specific. Okay, so when we use that in terms of, and there's a couple different ways in we can hit, like specific children of sections. So like maybe this H2 section. So we're going to start kind of playing around with this. So in order to do that, though, we have to add CSS. There are three ways that we can use CSS in HTML. We can use it as in document, we can use it as inline, and we can use it as external. The preferable way for designing is to separate your presentation, what your website looks like, with the content you have. Your HTML is the content. It's all organized in a structure. CSS should not be all inside of your HTML because it's very difficult for designing. It's very difficult for making changes. If you wanted to change the whole scheme of your entire website, all your web pages, if you're linked to one external document, it is a lot easier and a lot less work. Okay, so let me show you that. So if I go link, here, this is wanting to link to a CSS sheet. Well, we don't have one, so let's go ahead and create one. So file new, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save this as, say, my styles.css. Save. Okay. Now we could say, you know what, we're going to have a bunch of pages that are CSS. We're going to have pages that are styles. We could create a folder that's called CSS, and my styles could be in there. Okay. So there are issues that I see of some people have where you guys are unable to see images and things because they're not in the folder that you have located. Okay, you have to write the folder that you're going to. So in this case, CSS is a folder, so I have to have the exact same spelling and then my style sheet. If I move this out, so once we get into, let's do one style. So let's say body. Body is the biggest element, and normally when you're styling CSS, you're doing the largest containers to the smallest containers, so or to the more specific. So body is holding everything. So that's what I want to target first. So I can give a font size, and I'm just doing font and colors because that's the easiest to see. But when you guys are designing, you can do a lot more. So let's say I wanted to do 32 pixels. And let's say I want to do a font family of, let's say, monospace. And I want to do a color of, let's say, green. Okay. Now I could do green this way. I could do green as an RGB, as an HSL, or as hex numbers. There's lots of different ways to do colors. Okay, so if I save both of these and I go and open up my page, So this is what it will look like. Let me move that over. All right. So everything that I have on my page is now has a green text. Okay, because the body is targeting everything. Now, if I wanted all H1, so let's say H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 elements to have a color of blue, I can do that. I save, I reload my page, and now those are specifically done. So now let's move this over so we can see both of them. All right, so this is now styled. So now let me move my CSS so I can show you what it looks like when it's broken. All right, so I just drag it to here. There it is. It's no longer inside this folder. This folder is empty. Okay. If I reload this, my stuff is broken. I am not seeing any of my styles. Okay. That is because in my index.html, it's looking for my style sheet inside CSS. So I have to have them match. So if it's not inside the CSS folder, then I have to move it to where it needs to be appropriately done. Now, I could break up my styles if I needed, because this is all cascading down. So if I say H1 through H6 is color blue, but now I'm saying H1 is going to be color, let's say red, and let's give it a background color. So I'm going to give it a size width. Let's say 100%, and background color, we're going to do pink. All right, so if I save this and reload, I am targeting specifically the H1, okay? Now, even though I already designed this as blue, because this is coming afterwards, it is going to override. Now, if I move this so that it is above this one, it's going to do what it sees last. Okay, so if they're at the same level, H1 and H1, they're both pretty general. It's going to do what it sees last. So the width is still going to be defined. The background color is still going to be defined, but the color for the actual text is going to be in blue. Okay, so if I refresh this, it's changing it to blue. All right, now that is how cascading style sheets works. If I want to bring specificity into it and I say, you know what, I have my H1, but I want to target specific H1s. So if I look at my stuff, this H1 that is inside of the body, I could do that and try to target that. So let's do, I'm going to do H2 so that we can target both of those because we have two of them now. All right, so I'm going to switch this to H2. And once I save, so when we look, we can see what that's going to do. Okay, so I have first section and second section. So when I'm looking at my stuff, I have this right here that is a child of the section, and this is a child of the section. So if I said section H2, okay, that means that H2 is a child of section, and I go back here to refresh, I'm still getting my color red. Now this is more specific. This is more specific than here, right here. So if I look at my specificity and I say H2 and then I say section H2, that is more specific. I am using children and stuff like that to identify. The H2 is a child of the section parent. Okay, so that is more specific. So then even though I have my H1 through H6 as all a certain color blue, I'm still seeing red. because red is more specific with this selector. Okay, now if I wanted to change this even further, so here's an H2. If I create a class and I give it a name and say, let's call it green color, that is going to be my class. And then I can say here dot green, and I need to spell it the same way, green color, and I design it. I could say that I want the color to be green, and I want the background color to be, let's see if it does light green. Let's just do RGB. Green is, so we want red, no. We want 255. And we got no blue. Okay, so if we run this, and we refresh, okay, I am now targeting that second one as more specific. And if I look at it, I have a section H2, which was targeting both things, but now I have an H2 or dot green color. Class is more specific than multiple elements to target it. Okay, classes, attributes, and pseudo classes, all of those are more specific than just elements. Okay, so this is a way that I can specifically target certain things in my text. If I'm doing the same thing with paragraphs, I could say that I want a paragraph that is right after the H2. So let's go to the body. So now we have these H2. Those are going to be farther down. Let's go and do a paragraph. I want all my paragraphs to have a background color of, let's say blue. And I run this. It's pretty generic. Now, let's see, I want my paragraph, my colors of my text to be white. Okay, so now I have that, but I say, you know what? I want that paragraph that is directly right after H2 elements. So I can have that, and it doesn't, if I had it above or below, so let me do it above just so you can see it. The paragraph directly after an H2 element, I want the background color to be black. Okay, now let's go ahead and run, see where we're at. All right, so this should be more specific. If I check on here and I am targeting paragraphs, and here I am targeting H2 plus the paragraph, so it means it's right after. That should be more specific. So let's go ahead and refresh. All right, so because it's more specific, we have targeted directly. It went to the most generic, where it changed it to white. So we went from body, where it changed the color to green. Then we went to the paragraph, we changed it to white, and a background color blue, and then we overrode it with something more specific with the background color black. So when I'm organizing, this should actually be above it, okay? Because we're going to have least specific to more specific. All right, and we're going to just keep doing this to design our pages, design our layout, okay? I can, change the width to, because right now the width is getting inherited from the body and it's just defaulting. So I could say the width is only going to be 50% and save that and rerun. And now I have adjusted the sizing of my paragraph for that element. Okay, we could do this with all of our elements. We can start being more and more specific. So we could change our text, our font family, all of our stuff. Specifically for what I'm looking for from you guys right now is that you guys are directly designing your stuff using external CSS. So why use external CSS? Well, the problem is in your head, if you're using a style and you're setting it this way, well, even though we just did something with our paragraphs, so I'm going to do really generic paragraphs. I'm going to do background color. Let's do red. All right. So if I save this and I run this, in terms of specificity, an in document is more specific than an external CSS. And using the specificity in here, I'm not going to be able to test it, but in document is more specific. So it's going to identify right here. Now, that paragraph is still fairly generic compared to the paragraph directly after an H2 element. But I could give classes and things like that to be more specific. Now, here, reasons why you may not end up seeing stuff. So this first paragraph, we were doing some specific design to it. Well, if you keep doing this, where you are doing an inline style, and you have, let's say, black text, and then we're going to do a background. Well, let's just leave it as black text. All right, so if I do this, this is as specific as you can get because it is tied to that specific element that you're doing the style to, which is problematic because, for one, you have to go through every single line of your code finding where you have styles with each element to redesign them. And it's going to completely overwrite any type of design that I do. Okay? So this color, this is always going to be black. It does not matter what I'm saying. It's always going to do black. So even if I give it a class, let's give it a class, and let's say we call it first paragraph. Okay, so I have a class now. Let's go to our styles and let's call that class. So the dot first paragraph, and I say, you know what? I want that color to be white. I'm trying to be really specific towards it. Inline is still going to override, so I still don't see the color, because even though this is saying that it's white, this style is still setting it to black. It doesn't matter if I add an ID to this and I give it a name. Let's call it first. All right, so now I'm going to try to be really specific. So I'm going to target with the first and the class and the paragraph that is right after H2 and is a child of section. So we're just going to get crazy here. Okay, so I want the paragraph that has the class first paragraph that is right after the H2 element that is a child of section. Okay, that is very specific. If I go in here and I test this out in the specificity, and I have my paragraph, look, I got 4 things, 3 elements that I'm using and a class. Oh, and an ID. So let's go ahead and add that ID. Add an ID, and we got it called first. So we did first. First, all lowercase. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Specificity, this should be super specific, but I am overriding. So again, we're going to do color white. I save. Okay, so this right here, this little bit of code is screwing up everything that I'm trying to do. Let's go ahead and refresh. Still can't target it. Okay? So, moral of the story, do not use inline CSS design. You should not use in document style, okay, because you cannot have a uniform style without using external. External CSS is how you can design for all of your pages. If you're trying to target something specifically on your page, that is where IDs come in, and they should still be used inside your style sheet. Okay, there is no rule against me using multiple style sheets, but again, it's the last time that something is seen is what is getting adopted. So if I have a paragraph that I'm targeting in here, paragraph that I'm targeting on another style sheet, paragraph in the style, and paragraph in line, it's going to do the one that's in line because that's what it sees last. Okay, so that is the design that it implements. It will override whatever that part is. Okay, so just taking this off will fix a lot of my code. I'll refresh, and now I have it show up. Okay, so that is how we can target our stuff for CSS. There are a lot of different ways. We can do it by attributes. We can do it by classes. We can do it by IDs. If I want to do it by ID, it's the hashtag, and then I got to give the name. When you're using IDs, you should only use one instance per page. So this first, I should not be using that all over the place. I should only use it in one location. Okay, and color blue. That is more specific. If I refresh, I should be hitting it. So let's double check. This, that's what we have here. And now we just have one. So when we check specificity, this is still more specific. Okay. So if I took this off and I only have ID for one of them, it switches. So if I save and I reload my page, and now it changes. Okay, it's more specific. IDs are more specific than classes and attributes, and class attributes and pseudo classes are more specific than elements. Okay, so using your specificity calculator, you should use that to design your CSS. If you are doing something where you have this paragraph here where you're doing some design and then you have it show up again somewhere else with different designs, that is not what you're wanting to do. There may be some instances where you're trying to do it to default to some things, but you guys are not at that point, depending on if something is able to do certain transforms or opacity, depending on the version numbers of the internet browsers. Okay, so we're not really there. So where you guys are right now, you should not have multiple instances of the same selector doing the same thing or even different things. Okay, you need to have them combined and intelligently design your layout of your structure. Okay, all right.